Hi there, welcome back. Today we're going to make a thumbnail using the open source and free software known as the Gimp. So straight away, you can open up a resolution of 1280 by 720. This is a standard thumbnail size for YouTube and pretty much everything really. It doesn't matter about the background color, as we can add a alpha channel to the layer, which means that it would be transparent or whatever color you want. So I'm going to make a thumbnail of Tim the Tapman as a response video to something that he said in a tweet. So I'm going to download a photo of him and take a photo of myself, and we're going to cut these two people out of their photos. So there's a quick shortcut. On Windows you can do Control and then use your mouse wheel to zoom in and out. You can then use the scroll wheel on its own to go up and down. You have to use the horizontal scroll bar to actually go left and right. We're going to use the path tool to select a bunch of paths, and we're going to use this to actually cut the object out of the photo. So the way I do it is I make lots of rough small clicks. You can go into much greater detail if you zoom into the photo, and if you want to make a slightly more natural curve, you can just click and then drag to make an actual curve. But you have to be aware that the next click afterwards will follow that same curve. For these photos, I prefer to just click. Like I say, you can zoom in if you want more detail, and if you want to readjust, you can click on any of the points and drag them to move them if they're not quite as accurate as you'd like. But for this sort of thumbnail, we're not too concerned about being too accurate, as the quality would be much lower, the thumbnail will be much smaller, and we're going to add an effect onto the actual subject. So once you've done all of the points, you want to control click to finalize the point. That will close off the loop. You can then press enter to select the path. This allows you to then cut with Control X on Windows, Command X on Mac. And we want to cut that out, post it onto our other image, the blank image that we created earlier, and go ahead and click the green icon bottom right to make a new layer with this recently posted image. So I'm going to go ahead and tidy up the image slightly, make sure everything, all the background from the photo has been removed. This gives it a much better effect because then you can see through the person and it makes it look like they should have been there all along. So there you go. There's a roughly cut image of a person. We can go ahead and delete the background from the downloaded image, and we'll go ahead and do the same for this photo as well. We'll just select the path tool and cut them out. Keep it as clean as you can. There's a method I use to make it look a bit tidier. So whenever you select another one to move it, make sure that before you keep on clicking, you want to select the last one, because otherwise it messes up the path. And right at the end, it doesn't need to be too accurate when it's underneath. So as you can see, the second image is much larger than the first, so we want to use the scale tool to resize the image. And in this instance, I want to make sure the heads are roughly the same sort of size. And again, just going to remove all the background from the image and tidy it up a little bit. I find this adds a lot more effect to the actual image. And you can see, because my cuts were a bit too rough, there's quite a bit of actual background left where it shouldn't have been. And there we have it. 2 finished cuts using the path tool. So now we're going to find a background for this image. Because Tim the Tapman tweeted about Valorant, we're going to use a Valorant backdrop just so it looks relevant. Move the layers around so that everything looks where it should be. With this one, we're quite lucky because we've got the sort of 5 character elements from the Valorant wallpaper are actually quite well posed for this cut. And lastly, I don't put a lot of text on my thumbnails. You need to think about what you actually need and whether the text brings anything to your thumbnail. Go ahead and use the text tool. You can go crazy, you can change colors, font styles. I don't actually have a Valorant font. It's preferable that you use one. So if you use the Gimp and look at it about 25%, that would be the thumbnail size roughly that you'd see on YouTube. But you need to make sure that you can actually read the text from the thumbnail and read it clearly. So black and white, or white and black, always works well for readability. You normally find that in these cases people have large fonts and fewer of them, but I normally find that a font of about 90 works quite well. You can see that you have to select every single character when you want to resize. So with this text, and because we've cut out the people, we have the opportunity to actually put text behind the people ever so slightly. You don't want to hide too much of the text. It gives a nice effect if you can hide it a little bit. Now, so the first effect we want to put on the text is an outer outline. So if you highlight the text layer, right click and do alpha to selection, it will then highlight and select all of the text, which then allows you to select grow. And in this case, we'll do 3 pixels, which gives a very slight but noticeable and obvious outline to the text. You have to think that this thumbnail will actually be viewed at a much smaller size than we're seeing it now. So 3 pixels, and we will create a new layer, call it whatever you want, and then use the paint tool to fill in with whatever color. I use black because white font on a black background actually is very readable, and this gives a black outline to all of the text. And next I like to give a drop shadow. So I give a drop shadow to the bottom layer, the outline layer, because it's larger, and I normally give a 10, 5, 0.5 setting, which gives it just a noticeable drop shadow, just gives it a slight 3D effect. Now what we want to do is, we've got 2 people, we've got 2 objects in the forefront of this thumbnail. We can do whatever we want with these, but what I like to do, and I think what a lot of people do on thumbnails, is give them an outline. With the layers, before you blur, I like to go layer to image size, and that means that when you blur an image or when you put a drop shadow in, the element itself is actually bigger and has a lot more space to blur in. Otherwise you're restricted by the selection that we have by the yellow box, and this can sometimes affect a blur or a drop shadow. So again, what I like to do here is alpha to selection on the layer of Tim. We'll make another layer and drop it below the first layer so that we have a background. And I have a theme of filling with a pattern, and then I do the same with a white background. So we have a 2-ring outline. And I'll do the same with the second layer. And again, select grow 10 pixels, make a new layer. I fill this with white. Now we still want to make these 2 foreground objects look as if they are one person or one image. So we can move the layers around so that they give that effect, even though they're still separate. For the white layer, people like to give it a bit of a blur. Sometimes less is more, and there we go. So like I say, if you zoom out so that the thumbnail is 25%, this is roughly what you'll see on YouTube. And now we can go ahead and export this. If you save as, it will save to a Gimp specific file. If you export, then you can export to a JPEG or a PNG. You just have to change the file type in the name field, and the Gimp will know exactly what you need to do with that. As you can see, when I change it again, I get different options. And there we go, finished thumbnail, ready to be uploaded. Hope you enjoy. If you want to see more of these, please subscribe. Please like the video. Leave any comments below if there's something else you'd like to see along these lines. And I look forward to hearing from you next time. Take care.